If you are listening to this right now, we are talking directly to you.
Right, to you.
You are sitting at a very unique intersection, right? The nexus of academia, public policy, and specialized consulting.
Yeah.
Whether you are representing 6P leadership or, University of Utah's initiative on government improvement, IGI, or the School of Public Affairs, you hold the keys to greenlighting a blueprint that can actually fix this drag race problem we're talking about.
Because today's mission for this deep dive is to unpack the architecture of a, frankly, revolutionary public-private partnership.
Let's unpack this.
Yeah, the core of this proposal is the first ever Public Sector Systemic Excellence Award. I mean, this is a comprehensive credentialing ecosystem designed specifically to solve those structural performance issues that are just paralyzing government organizations from the inside out.
So rather than just running down a list of features like some late-night infomercial, we need to examine why the current system is so deeply, fundamentally broken.
Right. Let's look at the alternatives.
If we look at the absolute heavyweights of organizational excellence, and I'm talking about the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award and the Shingo Prize. I mean, these are revered frameworks.
Gold standards, yeah.
But when a busy public manager actually tries to implement them in a government agency, the wheels just completely fall off.
They fall off because the DNA is wrong. Let's examine Baldrige first. It is an incredibly rigorous audit of management systems.
You're rigorous.
But its DNA is entirely corporate. To even submit an application, just to apply for a Baldrige Award, an organization is required to provide 3 to 5 years of consecutive historical trend data.
3 to 5 years.
Yes. And that's not just internal data. You have to provide top-tier comparative benchmarking against your direct competitors in the market.
Which immediately breaks down in the public sector. I mean, let's create a scenario here. Say I'm running a State Department of Workforce Services.
Okay.
My job is to process unemployment claims.
Right.
And help people find jobs. Who's my competitor?
You don't have one.
I don't have one. I am a monopoly by statutory design.
Exactly. And beyond the lack of competitors, that 3 to 5 year data requirement, it completely ignores the political reality of government work.
Oh, the election cycles.
Think about it. In a 5-year span, a state agency might see, 2 different governors?
Easily.
3 shifts in legislative majorities, and maybe 4 massive overhauls to their statutory mandate. You don't have perfect, clean trend data because your entire operational foundation is constantly shifting beneath your feet based on those election cycles.
So attempting to meet that Baldrige standard, it's not just difficult, it feels almost punitive to these managers.
It's an administrative nightmare.
An underfunded state agency would have to hire an entire dedicated team of administrative staff just to write what effectively amounts to a postdoctoral academic thesis, just to apply for the award.
Yeah.
They don't have the budget or the manpower for that. It just becomes massive administrative bloat.
And because they know they can't realistically do Baldrige, many of these leaders look to the Shingo Prize instead. Now, Shingo is phenomenal. It really is. It is the global gold standard for assessing whether an organization's culture is truly driving ideal, efficient behaviors.
That there's a catch, right?
A very significant one. Shingo is deeply, inextricably anchored in lean manufacturing. It was quite literally born on the factory floor at Toyota.
Okay, wait. I want to pause and define lean for a second, just to make sure we're analyzing the mechanics properly for everyone listening.
Sure.
When we talk about lean manufacturing, we are talking about a philosophy of relentlessly identifying and eliminating waste in a physical production process.
Right.
Like, it's about standardizing every single movement so you can produce 1 million widgets with 0 defects.
Correct. Which is brilliant if you are, say, making smartphones or building cars. You measure success by defects per million units. But how on earth does that translate to a policy-driven public service environment?
It doesn't.
Exactly. If I am running a county public health department, my metric for success is community well-being.
Right.
That is a deeply complex qualitative outcome. It's influenced by poverty rates, housing, education, and 1,000 other variables completely outside of my control. I can't standardize a citizen's health the way I can standardize a microchip on an assembly line.
So what happens then? You have these public agency directors who genuinely want to achieve excellence.
Yeah.
They really do. But they look at Baldrige and realize they don't have the competitive benchmarking data.
Right.
And then they look at Shingo and realize, well, we aren't a factory. So they just throw their hands up and give up on systemic excellence altogether.
They settle for compliance.
This is the trap. And it's such a dangerous one. They start to believe that compliance verification is the absolute ceiling of what they can achieve. They think, well, the state auditors came in, we didn't get fined, and we didn't end up on the front page of the newspaper for some terrible corruption scandal. Therefore, we must be an excellent agency. We desperately need a framework that isn't trying to turn government into a factory or a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
We need an engine designed for the unique constraints of government leadership.
Which brings us to the core of this proposal, the 6P framework.
Yes. Let's get into the 6P framework.
The 6P framework is essentially a translation engine. It takes the most effective principles of private sector management, things like organizational development, the theory of constraints, Lean Six Sigma, and completely re-engineers them for the reality of the public sector.
Right.
And specifically, it is built to operate within a strict 40-hour work week, because government managers can't just mandate 80-hour week. And the 6P framework guides them to do exactly that through a philosophy of innovation through introspection. It forces an organization to look inward, diagnose their own specific constraints, and optimize what they already have.
I want to see how this actually plays out in reality. Yeah. Let's take these 6Ps and apply them to a hypothetical scenario.
Okay, give me one.
Let's say we are looking at a State Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, a classic high-friction government environment that everyone loves to hate.
Perfect.
So the first P in the framework is purpose.
Right. And in the private sector, the profit motive naturally creates purpose. If you make a bad product, nobody buys it, you lose money, you go out of business, the feedback loop is immediate and brutal.
Very true.
But in a bureaucracy like the DMV, there is no profit motive.
Right.
If the lines are 4 hours long, the DMV doesn't go bankrupt. The citizens just suffer.
So without that profit signal, agencies experience massive mission creep. They completely lose sight of why they actually exist in the first place.
Exactly. So the 6P solution for purpose is establishing absolute, ruthless clarity on who the primary customer is and what activities actually drive public value.
Okay.
For the DMV, the customer isn't the state legislature, and it's not the internal HR department. The customer is the citizen needing a driver's license.
Right.
6P forces the leadership to strip away all the secondary noise and align every single department around that core statutory mandate.
Okay, so the DMV gets its purpose straight. But knowing your purpose doesn't magically make the 4-hour lines disappear.
No, it doesn't.
Which brings us to the second P, production. Because, government production usually just looks like getting bogged down in endless compliance paperwork.
This is where that theory of constraints comes back in. Under the production pillar, 6P teaches public sector leaders how to map the flow of value and measure their actual operational capacity.
Oh, wow.
You keep the constraint constantly fed and operating at maximum capacity. You stop the bottlenecks from forming without needing to raise costs or authorize a bunch of overtime.
That makes a lot of sense. But let me push back here, bringing in the third P, which is priority. Let's say our DMV director successfully maps the flow and gets the line down to 30 minutes. They're operating beautifully, super efficiently.
Sounds great.
But the very next day, a state senator decides it's an election year and mandates that the DMV must now also register all boats, ATVs, and issue hunting licenses. Suddenly, all that newfound efficiency is just crushed under unfunded mandates.
Yeah, that is the reality of public administration. Everything is priority one syndrome.
Exactly.
And when everything is urgent, nothing is. This is where 6P introduces the concept of strict project portfolio gating.
Gating, meaning like building a literal gate to keep the politicians out.
Well, a data-driven gate, typically a public manager just says yes to every mandate because they feel they have to, right? And they spread their team incredibly thin, which results in 50 half-finished projects.
Yeah, the classic government backlog.
Exactly. Portfolio gating means building a rigorous evaluation matrix. So when that senator demands the DMV take on hunting licenses, the director can pull up their capacity data and say, Senator, we can absolutely do that. However, our portfolio is at 100% capacity. Here's the operational data to prove it. To pass the hunting license project through the gate, we have to pause the commercial trucking initiative, or we need X amount of specific funding for temporary staff. Which would you prefer? It builds a culture of focus and finish. You aggressively filter projects, dedicate resources to the highest priority, and actually get it across the finish line before opening the gate for a new mandate.
I can imagine that requires a lot of courage from a leader, which naturally brings us to the fourth P, which is presence.
Right.
Because in my experience, a lot of government directors rely purely on formal authority. It's a very hierarchical, almost militaristic mindset.
Really?
Like, I am a GS-15, you are a GS-9, just do what I say.
But formal authority only gets you minimum compliance. It gets you employees who will do exactly what is written in their job description and absolutely nothing more.
Right.
6P Presence teaches leaders how to earn what it calls volunteered support.
Volunteered support. That's a really interesting phrase.
It's a vital psychological shift. It teaches leaders to identify and capture the moments that matter. You want your employees volunteering their best ideas and their discretionary effort, not just maliciously complying with the rule book.
And that bleeds directly into the 5th P, people. We know burnout in the civil service is at absolute crisis levels right now.
Oh, it's massive.
They deal with archaic technology, rigid union rules, and a public that constantly criticizes them as lazy bureaucrats. It's tough.
It is, and the 6P framework does something incredibly counterintuitive here regarding the people pillar. It teaches leaders to actually embrace employee resistance.
Okay, explain that mechanism to me. Because if I am a manager trying to roll out a new process, an employee pushing back just feels like insubordination.
It does.
It feels like they're dragging their feet just because they hate change.
It usually feels exactly that way. But think about our DMV example. Let's say the director is rolling out a brand new, slick, iPad-based check-in system for the lobby.
Right.
And the frontline clerk, who's been there for 20 years, just refuses to use it. They keep using paper clipboards. The traditional management response is to write them up for non-compliance.
Right. Fire them, sideline them, or put them on a performance improvement plan.
But the 6P approach treats that resistance as a vital diagnostic tool. The leader actually sits down with the clerk and asks why.
And what does the clerk say?
The clerk says, well, the iPad screen glares in the afternoon sun coming through the lobby windows, so the senior citizens can't read it, they get confused, and it backs up my line for an hour.
Wow. So the resistance wasn't laziness at all. It was a completely valid systemic flaw that the director just couldn't see from their corner office.
Exactly. If you create a culture where resistance is sought out and analyzed, you are treating your people as highly intelligent sensors of organizational health.
That's amazing.
Your implementation of a new project might start a little slower because you are taking the time to gather that feedback, but it will ultimately succeed much faster because you've mitigated all the hidden risks.
That is brilliant. Okay, so the final P is platforms, the IT element.
Yes.
Because in government, the IT department is usually like locked in a basement somewhere, totally disconnected from actual operations, and they're just saying no to every software request.
6P ensures that technology, and this includes the integration of AI, is not viewed as just a detached administrative expense. IT must be structurally designed to support the purpose-driving work of the front line.
Right.
It's about building platforms that elevate human capacity, rather than just digitizing bad, inefficient processes. Because if your process is broken, digitizing it just means you are doing the wrong thing faster.
Exactly. Now, let me step out of the narrative for a second and play the role of the highly skeptical government executive who's listening to us right now.
Bring it on.
I hear these 6 Ps. They sound incredibly logical. But look, I have been burned by management fads before. If you try to force my already exhausted managers into a 3-day offsite retreat to stare at whiteboards, do trust falls, and write new mission statements, I'm going to throw you right out of my office.
Yeah.
How is this not just another cumbersome HR compliance exercise?
It's a very fair critique. The graveyard of public administration is just filled with failed consulting fads. But 6P avoids this entirely through its delivery mechanism. This isn't a team of consultants moving into your conference room and billing you by the hour for 6 months. The framework is actually delivered through 17 proven, highly targeted online diagnostic and orientation modules.
But wait, government workers hate online modules. That sounds exactly like the annual cybersecurity click-through training that everyone just mutes, ignores, and clicks next on until they get the little certificate at the end.
It would be if it were just a video you passively watch. But these are active diagnostic tools.
Oh, okay.
It uses a hybrid learning model. A leader interacts with the module, inputs their actual real-time organizational data and bottlenecks into the system, and the platform helps identify the systemic gaps.
So it's customized to them.
Deeply customized, it is deeply practical and sequential. It requires a minimal time investment, again, built for that 40-hour work week, but yields maximum diagnostic clarity.
Okay, so let's say our DMV director goes through the modules, applies the 6 Ps, finds their bottleneck, gates their portfolio, and completely turns the agency around.
A total success story.
The lines are gone. Morale is high. But how do they prove it? If Baldrige demands data they don't have, and Shingo's for factories, how does this director prove to the State Oversight Committee that they aren't just lucky, but fundamentally excellent?
This is the crux of the entire blueprint. We need a new standard of validation, and that is why this partnership is launching the Public Sector Systemic Excellence Award.
The award.
Yes. It is a credential that carries immense academic and institutional weight, but it is built exclusively from the ground up for mission-driven organizations.
It's essentially the Shingo competitor for the public sector.
Exactly.
But how do you actually measure it? Like, it can't just be based on vibes or a nicely written essay from the director?
No, it is rooted in what is called the 6P Organizational Health Index, or the OHI. This is an empirical 44-signal audit of institutional efficacy.
And this award isn't just a pass or fail binary either, right? It's structured as a tiered maturity certification, which I think is vital because you don't transform a massive state agency overnight. It's an inside-out growth model.
Exactly. Let's walk through the tiers.
Please do.
Level 1 is certified. To achieve this, the focus is entirely on the senior leadership mindset and core infrastructure.
Meaning the executive team basically just has to stop the bleeding.
Essentially, yes. It proves that the C-suite is actually aligned.
They've laid the groundwork.
Right, they have built the architectural blueprints for a healthy organization.
Okay, so then we move up to level 2, which is premier. What is the mechanism for moving from level 1 to level 2?
Level 2 is about institutionalizing focus and broadening motive power.
Okay, translate that into practical terms for me.
In practical terms, this means the 6P framework has successfully escaped the executive boardroom. It is now embedded into the daily workflows of the middle managers and the frontline staff.
And then the holy grail is level 3, pinnacle or true systemic excellence.
At level 3, the organization has successfully reconciled its internal silos. You no longer have the IT department fighting with operations or HR fighting with finance.
A miracle in government.
Truly. Cross-departmental teams naturally collaborate to solve complex, interconnected problems organically. The agency operates as a singular, healthy organism.
I want to highlight why this tiered credential is so politically valuable. We talked earlier about the oversight committees and the hostile state legislatures, right?
Yes.
Those bodies are naturally skeptical of government efficiency. If a director walks in and just says, hey, trust me, we're doing great, they get laughed right out of the room.
But if they walk in with a level 2 premier certification backed by the University of Utah, mapped to a 44-signal empirical index, that changes the conversation entirely.
It provides massive third-party credibility. It gives that director a literal shield made of hard, verified data to defend themselves against political micromanagement.
Absolutely.
It changes the narrative from defending your budget to showcasing your systemic excellence.
Exactly. But as we both know in the consulting and academic world, having a brilliant framework and rigorous award criteria means absolutely nothing if you can't successfully launch it to the market.
Right. A blueprint sitting on a shelf is just vaporware.
Which brings us to the execution phase. And this is where the listeners from 6P, IGI, and SPA really need to lean in and pay attention because we are looking at the highly strategic, three-pronged launch plan proposed for the spring of 2027.
And I just want to warn you right now,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about the budget for this launch in a minute, and it genuinely defies logic. I scrutinized these numbers for an hour before we started recording because I thought there was a typo in the document.
I had the same reaction. The financial efficiency of this rollout is actually one of its strongest selling points. But let's look at the structure first.
Okay, prong 1.
Prong 1 is the training cohort. This is scheduled to run from March through May of 2027. It is a premium 10-week pilot program designed for a highly curated group of about 30 participants, specifically senior government leaders, agency directors, department heads.
So what is the actual mechanism of this cohort? They aren't just sitting in a lecture hall at the university for 10 weeks, taking notes on a whiteboard, right?
No, not at all. These are busy executives. The cohort utilizes the 17 online 6P diagnostic modules, but it pairs them with guided, facilitated sessions.
So by the end of the 10 weeks, they aren't just walking away with a certificate of completion. They are walking away with a tangible, actionable roadmap to achieve their level 1 certification.
Exactly.
They have a customized blueprint to fix their most painful operational headache.
Which builds immense momentum for the program. And that momentum rolls directly into Prong 2, which happens in June of 2027. This is the summit.
A one-day, high-profile regional event.
It serves a dual purpose. First, it acts as a graduation and celebration for those 30 cohort participants. It validates their hard work publicly. But more importantly, it is the ultimate marketing and outreach tool. You open the doors to other government agencies from across the region. You host application workshops, networking events, and you showcase the tangible, data-driven results that the cohort just achieved.
It's the ultimate show, don't tell. When a struggling city manager comes to the summit and sees what those cohort directors achieved in just 10 weeks, they are going to want in.
Naturally.
Which perfectly sets the stage for Prong 3, the official public rollout of the Public Sector Systemic Excellence Award.
Once the market appetite is whetted at the summit, you open the gates. Agencies can now officially apply for the tiered maturity certification mapped to the OHI.
It's brilliant.
It is a textbook, flawless go-to-market strategy. You build a proof of concept with a small cohort, showcase the results at a major event, and then launch the product to a captive audience.
Okay, I can't hold off any longer. Let's talk about the money.
Let's do it.
To execute this entire three-pronged strategy, a 10-week intensive cohort for 30 executives, a major regional summit with workshops, and the establishment of a national credentialing ecosystem. The total proposed budget is $115,000.
It is a stunningly lean figure.
Lean doesn't even begin to cover it. In the world of government procurement, $115,000 might cover like the initial feasibility study by a mid-tier consulting firm.
True.
Or it might just cover the catering for a multi-day conference. I need you to break down the actual math here. How is this possible without cutting massive corners?
Let's look at the line items. The cohort costs are tightly contained at around $49,095.
Okay, how do we arrive there?
It includes $399 per person for their annual 6P platform memberships. It includes the preparation time for the expert consultants, and it includes roughly $825 in fees per facilitated session.
Okay, so the actual educational delivery and the diagnostic engine cost less than $50,000 for 30 executives.
Yeah.
That covers the whole 10 weeks. What about the summit? Because conferences are notorious money pits.
The summit budget is capped at $66,760, and that is a fully loaded, realistic number.
Yes, sir.
It accounts for $9,000 for food and beverage. It dedicates $12,000 for bolstered AV and technology to ensure high production value. It includes $10,000 for space rental. It even carves out a very healthy $15,000 budget to bring in a top-tier, recognizable keynote speaker.
Wow.
Plus, there is funding allocated for branding, marketing, and a contingency buffer just in case.
Okay, the math adds up on paper, but as an analyst, I have to ask why it's so cheap. What is the invisible subsidy here? Why isn't this costing $500,000 to launch?
Because we are circumventing the two biggest expenses in any program launch: research and development and administrative overhead.
Okay, unpack that.
6P's intellectual property, the digital platform, the algorithms, the 17 modules, the 44-signal OHI, it is already fully developed, stress-tested, and ready to deploy. There are zero R&D costs being passed on to the partners.
Right. They aren't building the airplane while flying it. The plane is already built and sitting on the runway.
Exactly. And the second massive saving comes from the University of Utah. Because this is a partnership with the Initiative on Government Improvement and the School of Public Affairs, the university naturally provides the accrediting infrastructure, the prestige, and the institutional backing.
That's a huge asset.
It is. You don't have to spend $100,000 on a marketing agency to build trust and brand equity from scratch. The university already has it. The overhead is virtually non-existent.
So once this $115,000 pilot proves the concept, the model is infinitely scalable. The financial barrier to entry for the organizing partners is practically a rounding error in a university budget. It's incredibly low risk.
But we must also evaluate the draw from the perspective of the end user. We've established that it's cheap to run, but if I am that stressed out, overworked agency director, why am I volunteering for a 10-week intensive?
Yeah, what's in it for them?
What is my personal return on investment?
This goes back to the fundamental friction of being a government leader. You exist at a very high-stress intersection of two entirely different languages.
Two languages.
Yeah. On one hand, you are deeply committed to public service. You speak the language of the mission equity, community impact, public health, safety.
But the people who hold your funding, the mayors, the city councils, the state oversight committees, they increasingly demand what they call business acumen.
Yeah.
They want to see ROI. They want efficiency metrics, lean operations, and cost-benefit analyses.
And when those two languages collide, it just creates chaos. The politician looks at the agency and says, you can't give me an ROI calculation, therefore you must be horribly inefficient.
Right.
And then the director looks at the politician and says, I can't calculate an ROI on preventing child abuse, you just lack compassion.
And that language barrier breeds distrust, which immediately leads to political micromanagement. The politician starts dictating operational policy because they fundamentally don't trust the director's metrics.
So going through this 6P cohort and earning this award is essentially acquiring a universal translator.
How so? Walk through that analogy for me.
The director still does the vital mission-driven work, but the 6P framework gives them the ability to perfectly translate that work into the empirical, data-driven business acumen language that the politicians demand.
Ah, I see. They prove they have gated their portfolio.
Yes, they prove they have eliminated bottlenecks.
They speak the language of systemic efficiency flawlessly.
When you step back and look at the whole picture, the synergy is incredible. You have specialized consulting, a dedicated government improvement initiative, and a premier academic institution, all aligning perfectly to create a brand new national standard for public service.
It is a rare alignment of interests. The financial risk is massively mitigated by the low budget, the intellectual property is already proven, and the potential impact is systemic and national.
So let's quickly retrace the path we've walked today.
Let's do a recap.
We started with the fundamental problem, right? Traditional private sector frameworks like Baldrige and Shingo, despite their brilliance, they fail busy public managers
They drown them in administrative bloat.
and force them to measure community outcomes with manufacturing metrics. This forces agencies to abandon true excellence and settle for mere compliance.
And to break that cycle, the 6-key framework adapts systems thinking principles like the theory of constraints, specifically for the realities of the public sector.
Right. It provides practical solutions for establishing purpose, fixing production bottlenecks, gating priorities, earning presence, utilizing people's resistance as a diagnostic, and leveraging IT platforms.
And we validate that entire transformation through the new Public Sector Systemic Excellence Award, backed by the 44-signal empirical OHI, structured across 3 tiers of maturity.
All of which is brought to market via a highly efficient 3-pronged launch plan in spring 2027. The 10-week cohort, the high-profile summer summit, and the official credential rollout.
All executed for a stunningly lean budget of $115,000.
Delivering career-saving value to agency directors and creating an undeniable win-win-win for 6P, IGI, and SPA. So to you, our listener,
You're up.
you sit at the intersection of these institutions. You are the visionary capable of taking this blueprint off the page and putting it into the real world. You hold the roadmap to fundamentally changing how government performance is measured, achieved, and celebrated.
You can replace the muddy waters of compliance with absolute data-driven clarity.
The tools are built, the framework is proven, the budget is remarkably lean. The only thing required now is the commitment to move forward.